Then we will discuss about shearing strain in the circular shaft. Once we obtain the shearing strains, we can find the shearing stresses, and we can obtain the expression for elastic. We'll get to know the elastic torsion formula there. Then we will solve a simple example, and finally we'll discuss about shafts which have variable cross section and how the failure surface, what is a failure surface for different materials. We will compare ductile material and brittle material and see how what is the failure surface for those two materials and when the shaft is subjected to torsion. So here we have a circular shaft which has a constant area of cross section, and the axis of shaft, so this is the axis of the shaft, and we are applying some twisting moment at the ends. So at end B we are applying twisting moment T prime, and at end A we are applying the moment T. So the twisting moment, it will produce like if you put your right hand and curl your fingers in the direction of the twisting moment. So at end A, the thumb will point towards the left direction, and if you curl your fingers, right hand, if you curl the four fingers in the direction, in the same direction as this T prime, then the thumb will point it towards the right side. Okay, so T prime will, you can represent it like a arrow, double arrow, and it will be pointed towards the rightward direction. And if T will be pointed by, we can represent by a double arrow which will point it towards the leftward direction. So this twisting moment will produce some rotation of this entire shaft. So we want to see what are the stresses produced due to this twisting moment. So what we do at intermediate cross section at C, we look at the cross section. So we cut the shaft into two parts. So the left segment, we will see what is happening there. So the free body diagram for the left segment is shown here. So we have our twisting moment T prime at B, and on this surface there will be some stresses acting, and there will be some corresponding forces which are developed on that cut cross section. So that forces are shown here. They are given, let's consider a small area, and the force there, let's call it dF, and it is acting in the tangential direction. If you see in this body, there is no force in the along the axis of the shaft. Okay, so the forces on this, normal forces on this section is 0, and only tangential forces are acting, will act on this surface. And for a small elemental area, the tangential force is Tf. It is at a distance of, the area is at a distance rho from the centroid of the from the center of the circle. So what will happen is, if you apply the moment torsional equilibrium, so the twisting moment T prime will be balanced by these small elemental forces. So these small elemental forces will produce a torque about the center. So the torque we can calculate as rho dF. dF is the force and rho is the momentum. So rho dF, and we integrate it over the entire area. So that is what we have. When you if you sum up all the elemental forces, the torque produced by all the elemental forces, that will be balancing this T prime. So integral rho dF is T, that is the torque at the end. And we can, instead of writing dF, we can represent the, we can show, we can say that there is a shear stress acting on this small elemental area. Let's call that shear stress as tau. So dF will be tau times dA, and we want to know what is the tau as a function of the location. So we have integral rho tau dA is T. So we don't know what is the shear stress distribution over the cross section. although we know that total value of the torque produced by the shear stress is T. Okay, so we don't know what is tau y of G. So depending on y and g, or depending on r and theta, what is the shear stress of the at that for that elemental area? We don't know that. So we have to use using only equilibrium equations. We cannot know that. We have to do some. We have to look into the deformations and look into the strains, and then once we know the strains, we can relate it with the stresses using Hooke's law, and then we can find the tau value. So before doing that, let's look at this shear stress. So here we have this tangential shear stress. So acting on that cut cross-sectional area. So there is a with this shear stress there is a corresponding longitudinal stress. So here the tau is this area, this face corresponds to this face. Okay, so there is a shear stress acting there, and this is the axis of the shaft. So this plane is oriented along the axis of the shaft, and we have a shear stress here also, that is in the acting along the axis of the shaft, or you can call it the longitudinal shear stress. So for every shear stress which is acting on the circular cross section, there is a corresponding shear stress which is acting in the longitudinal plane. Okay, so and for moment equilibrium, this tau value will be equal to that tau value. Okay, so although we are rotating it, although we are twisting it, we not only get shear stress on that cross section, circular cross section, but we also get corresponding shear stress along the longitudinal direction. Okay, so to understand that, let's if we have a shaft which is composed of small wooden pieces, wooden strips. Okay, the strips are like this, oriented in the longitudinal direction. You can mark small marks. You can make some markings on this strip, two adjacent strips. So those are shown here. We are marked with three. We have marked at three places, on the top one and the bottom shaft, bottom plank. Then what we do, we apply a twisting moment. So when you apply the twisting moment, what will happen is there will be some relative sliding between these two planks. Okay, so this plank will, these marks will move to the right, and these marks will be moving to the left. So there is a relative sliding which is taking place. This sliding is similar to that. This sliding is similar to that horizontal shear, which is longitudinal shear. So this is a simple demonstration of that longitudinal shear. Although we are applying a torsional moment, we are also getting a longitudinal shear. In reality, what will happen is, when you have a homogeneous material, this relative sliding will not happen, but still there will be some relative stress which is being developed. There is a tendency will be there to for sliding. Okay, so although we will not see any relative motion, but there will be a tendency to slide. Why is there is no relative motion? Because we are putting we are giving a rigid round support here, and on the right end, and a rigid round support on the left end. So when you apply the torque, although the body will try to move in the longitudinal direction, it is prevented. So there will be some shear stress developed, but there will be no relative sliding for this homogeneous cohesive material. Okay, so this is regarding the longitudinal stress, but we are not interested in this. We are interested in it, but we'll do it in a different way. We'll have to calculate the tau value from the circular cross section area, and then we can find that longitudinal shear stress. Okay, so we look into the deformation first. Why we need to look into deformation? Because we are still not known the what is a stress distribution. So we need to look into the deformation. So we have our circular cross section, and we have a small. We can take a small. We have circular cross section has length L, and what we do, we apply a twisting moment T on this right surface. Okay, so because of this torque T, the surface will rotate by small angle phi. Okay, so the point A will move a little upward, and that is shown here. And at the center, A prime and A, that arc will subtend an angle of pi. So initially, the line which is along the longitudinal axis will deform, and it will become A prime B. Okay, so what we can say is that this angle separated at the center phi is directly proportional to the length of the beam. Suppose if the length is doubled and the torque applied is same and material is same, then what will happen is pi will also double. Okay, and pi is also directly proportional to t. So for a given length, if you double the torque, then the pi value will double. Yeah, so pi is directly proportional to t and pi is directly proportional to L. The angle of twist is proportional to these two values. So there is small condition here that T should lie, the applied torque should be such that the stresses developed within the circular shaft should be less than the yield stress. Okay. So in that scenario, pi will be directly proportional to T. If the stresses exceed the yield stress, then we have to do a plastic analysis. So in that case, phi will not be directly proportional to T. So we may discuss this on Wednesday or Thursday, that plastic analysis if possible. So for now we'll do only elastic analysis and see what is the shear stress. So what is happening for circular shaft, every cross section remains plane and undistorted. What it means is, suppose this is, consider this plane. Okay. So what will happen is, you can consider an interior. So we are subjecting this shaft to torsion T. So let's consider a section, circle in the interior. Okay, and let's identify 2 points C and D on the interior circle. Now when you apply the twisting moment, this C and D will this circle will rotate and it will reach some points, say C prime and D prime. Okay, that will be the deformed position. We don't know whether this C prime D prime lie on that circle or they will lie on a different plane. So the current plane is this one, the green solid line. We don't know whether the C prime D prime will lie on that green solid line or they will shift and move to a different plane. Okay, so we don't know that. So let's assume that they are moving away, and they move away from this plane of cross section. Maybe let's assume that they move towards the left. So this is the new plane, and the C prime D prime are the points after deformation, after applying the twist. Now what you will do? Now you look at this shaft from the left, from A. So you are standing here at A, and then you are looking at this cross section. Okay, this circular cross section, intermediate circular cross section. So what you will see is, you will see a round circle, and the twisting moment is acting like this. So the twisting moment will appear like this, and the C and D points will be somewhere here and here. And when you apply the twisting moment, the C and D will move away from you. Okay, so when you are looking from here, the point C, D will move away from you, and they take position C prime, D prime. Now what you do? You stand here at point B, and look at this shaft. So what you will see is, you will again see the circle. So that circle is again shown here. From point B you are seeing, and the torque will act like this. So the torque will be like this. Okay, if you are seeing from there, so this torque will translate to some in this direction. And from here, what you see, you will have C prime, D prime. So C and D here, C here, D here, and when you apply the twisting torque, the C prime, D prime will move towards you. Okay, because in the overall section, the C and D are moving in this direction. So when you see from point B, C prime, D prime will move towards you. So if you observe carefully, when you see from point position A, there is this clockwise torque acting, and point C and D are moving away from you. And when you are seeing from point position B, again clockwise torque is being applied, and C D are moving towards you. Okay, so this is a contradiction. In one case, it seems like C and D are moving away. In another case, it seems like C and D are moving towards you. So this cannot happen. So the only way this contradiction can be resolved is when C prime and D prime lie on that plane only. Okay, they don't move away from that plane. So whatever points are there on the circumference of the circle, the point will just move along that circle only. Okay, so C prime, D prime lie on the same circle as C and D. So what you can say is that under the action of torsion, the entire circular line will rotate, and it will lie in the same plane. It will not move to the left or it will not move to the right. all the points which are lying on the plane will remain on the same plane, but only thing is they will rotate by certain angle. Okay, so this is the reasoning we are using to say that all the planes on rotation will lie in the same plane of cross section. Okay, so we can apply the same reasoning to interior circles. So we can identify interior circles. So there are two interior circles shown here, and same reasoning is applied. So you can identify 2 points on the interior circle, and when you apply the rotation or the twisting moment, the points simply move on the circle itself. They don't move out of plane. They move within the plane, and they just rotate. So entire circle rotates by certain angle. Okay, so that is what we have. So the original circle rotates in its own plane, and the interior circle also will follow the same pattern. They will rotate in its own plane. Now, a little more, one more question we can ask. So there is this outer circumferential circle, and there are some inner circles are there. So do they rotate by the same amount, or do they rotate by different amounts? Okay, that is another question we want to answer. So here, let's say AB is the diameter of the circle. Under the action of the torsion, the points are rotating. So if all the circles, interior and exterior, all out circumferential circle and interior circle, all rotate by same amount, that means if they rotate by theta amount, then we'll get A prime, B prime, and we'll get a straight line. So the diameter which is sketched here, AB, on rotation, it will continue to remain straight. Okay. So this is the case when all the circles rotate by same amount. Okay, we don't know whether all the circles will rotate by same amount or whether they will rotate by a different amount. So let's do some one more exercise here. So what we will do is, let's assume that the diameter is not straight anymore. It is taking some shape. It is not straight. As a result, some circles on the there will be some differential rotation. So different circles rotate by different amounts. So let's see that. So let's assume some shape here. Okay, we are assuming some shape here that is not straight. Okay, but this shape is little symmetric with respect to the center. Okay, it's actually anti-symmetric with respect to the center. And initially the diameter is straight, but after deformation it is taking this green color shape. Okay, so this is due to a twisting moment T applied at A and another twisting moment applied at B. Okay, but due to force balance, this T prime will be equal to T. So same figure we are looking from different way. So here we are looking from A direction, and we see that S shape like this of the diameter. And if you look from B, the S shape will look like this. Okay, the same figure you are looking from the other side. This from say an observer at B is looking at this circles, inner circles, and this curve. He will see the S shape to be in this shape. So we agree that let's assume that this is the shape of the diameter after deformation, and that is the shape of the diameter after deformation from perspective B and from perspective A. Now let's look at those inner circles and look carefully what is happening. So we are focusing on segment BC, and we are looking at these inner circles. Okay, so from this perspective we are looking at. So we have our circle. Let's assume that the diameter is initially AB, and let's sketch two more lines, A1 B1 and A2 B2. Both are the diameters. And now let's sketch this S-shaped curve. So the S-shaped curve is shown here. Outer circumference, it is here, and as it goes towards the center, it is becoming a tangent to A1, and then from it becomes a tangent here to A1 there, A1 B1 there, and again it reaches B2. So this is our S-shaped circle. So if you see here what is happening, initially the line is AB, and after rotation A reaches A2 and B reaches B2. And if you look at an inner circle in between center and A, it reaches some point here between A1 and A2, and at the center it will be 0. So what we see here is in the circumference there is more rotation. The point is rotating from A to A2. and here point B is rotating from B to B2. And if you are looking on the inner circle, the rotation is little less. Okay, it is rotated from this point to some point in the green color, which is less than the rotation A2. Okay, so what we can say is that when you see this figure, it seems like the circumference has more rotation compared to inner circle. Okay, so this is one fact we can see from this analysis. Now, same figure we are looking from this side, from the B perspective, and we'll again look into the S-shaped curve. So the S-shaped curve which is shown here will look like this, and we are having that circle here, the same circle, and we have our initial diameter AB. Then we draw two lines A1, B1, A2, B2, the two diameters, and here the S-shaped curve is starting from A1, it will go and it reaches a center at A2, and similarly from A2 it will go and reach a center at B1. Okay, so here what will happen? Initially at the outer circumference, the point is here, and then it rotates by a amount this much, so A1. But if you look at the inner circles, they're rotating by a higher amount, okay, compared to the outer circumference. So here what is happening is the same deformation. When you are looking from this perspective, the circumference on the outer circle, the rotation on the outer circle is less compared to the rotation on the inner circle. Okay, so again you see that this is a contradiction. Same problem when you're looking from this side, the outer circumference happens to have more deformation, more rotation, and you're looking from the other side, the circumference is having a smaller deformation. So this is contradiction, and this cannot happen. So the only way to resolve this is that the shape is not a shape, it will be a straight line. Okay, so only way it can happen is that all the circles rotate by the same amount. Okay, so this is regarding the rotations of the inner circles and the outer circles. So all the circles rotate by the same amount, and they do not move away from the plane. They all lie in the same plane. Whatever points are lying on that plane will remain in the same plane. Okay, so this is the important things we can say, we can obtain about the, we can understand about the deformation in circle shaft. So with that knowledge, rest of these things is very simple. We'll just have to do some geometry, look at the geometry and find some geometric relations. So I will take a small break and come back. Okay, so let's look at the shearing strengths which are produced. So we have our initial line. We can focus on a single line on the outer edge, outer surface, and after twisting, the line will make will move will take this shape. Okay, and these 2 points will subtend an angle of phi at the center. So phi is the angle of twist. The radius of this circle is outer radius is capital R. Okay, so what we will do, we will look at a small cylinder we look at an interior cylinder, so of radius rho and length L. So this is the interior cylinder. It has radius rho and total length is L, and we are looking at a line in the interior. Okay, so on the outer surface of that cylinder. So that cylinder is that line is AB. So we can cut a small segment. So this is a segment we are cutting, and you can see that area sketched on the outer surface of the inner cylinder. Now under the action of the twisting moment, this segment will deform, and this line will also deform, and that deformation is shown here. So the line will rotate by an angle gamma. So the point A initially was here, then due to the twisting, it goes to a point A prime, and A prime, the arc subtends an angle of phi at the center, and AB has rotated by an amount gamma, and now it has become A prime B. This gamma is very small compared, is a very small quantity compared with what it's expressed in radians, and this gamma is very small. So what you can say is that tan gamma is approximately gamma, and then now we can, what will happen to the shaded area? The shaded area shown here will become a rhombus. Okay, that means initially it is like a square, and under the action of the due to the twisting, it will become a rhombus. The angles, the angle between any two lines will change, but the actual length of the line will not change. Okay, so it will become a rhombus, and actually this is there's a shear being produced there. So what we can do, we can use our simple geometry relations. We can find what is the length of A prime in terms of rho and phi and gamma and L. So for this circle, A prime is the arc of the circle. So what we will get is A prime is radius times length. So radius is rho and phi is the angle subtended. So we have rho times phi. And similarly, we can think of A prime as arc of a circle with center B. So in that case, the radius will be L and the angle subtended at the center will be gamma. So we will have A prime is L gamma. Okay, so what we will have, A prime is L gamma, which is equal to rho pi. So gamma, the shear strain, is rho phi by L. So rho is the radius of the inner cylinder. As so we see that there is a linear dependence on the radius. So at rho is 0, means when you're looking at the center, the gamma will be 0, and if you move farther away from the center and if you reach the outermost point, then you will get the maximum gamma value. So gamma max will be R phi by L. R will be the total radius of that entire shaft. So gamma max will be R phi by L. So we can divide this by these two equations, left hand side and right hand side, and we will get R by gamma max. Gamma by gamma max is equal to rho by R. So gamma will be rho by R gamma max. So the shearing strain, it varies linearly with the distance from the axis of the shaft. So this is the axis of the shaft, which is coinciding the center O and or the radius of the circle. And as you move farther and farther away, the shear strain will keep on increasing, and at the far outermost circumference, you will get the maximum shear strain. So this is the how the shear strains are being developed in the circular shaft. So there is a linear variation, and that is depending on the radius, distance of the point from the center or from the axis of the shaft. So it is varying, it is depending on that quantity. So once we know the shearing strain, we can find the shearing stress. Again, we are making one assumption that the shear stress is less than the yield strength. That means the plasticity has not yet reached. So we are operating in the elastic zone. So for that case, we can apply the Hooke's law. Tau is equal to G times gamma. G is the shear modulus. Okay, gamma is that shear strain. So shear strain, we already found that it is depending on rho, and we can write it as rho by R gamma max. So rho, we can take rho by R, we can take common, and we have G times gamma max. So G gamma max will denote it by tau max. That will be the maximum shear stress. G gamma max will be the maximum shear stress. So we'll have tau is equal to rho by R tau max. So the shear stress is a function again of the radius, that is the location of the point from the interior from the center. So we can plot the shear stress distribution on the circle. So we have our radius term on the x-axis and the shear stress on the y-axis, and we have a linear variation. The maximum value is tau max, and that is occurring at the outermost part of the circle, and at the innermost part it is 0. Okay, so this is the shear stress distribution in the circle due to the twisting moment T. Suppose you know the shear stress distribution, we can find what is the, we can apply that relation, integral rho tau dA is tau T dA is equal to T. So here what we do, where this is the shear which is tangential shear which is developed, this is a torque produced by this term tau dA is dF actually, dF into momentum, we are integrating it over the entire area, that is equal to the torque. So instead of tau we can write rho by r tau max times dA. So we can take tau max by r common, and we have the term rho square dA in the integral. So what is rho square dA? It is the polar moment of inertia. Instead of rho, we can, if you remember, it is r square dA. Instead of r, we are having rho. So this term is the polar moment of inertia. So we will represent the polar moment of inertia by this J value. Okay, so T is equal to tau max J by R. Okay, so what we can do, we can send R and J to the left hand side, and we get maximum shear stress which is occurring at the outermost part of the circle, that is equal to applied torque times radius, total radius of the circle by the polar moment of inertia J. So tau max is TR by J. So this is called the elastic torsion formula. And what we can do, we can write the expression for shear stress at any point in the interior of the circle. So the shear stress is equal to rho by r tau max. And instead of tau max, we use TR by J. So R and R will cancel out, we get T rho by J. So this is also elastic torsion formula. The shear stress is applied torque into the location of the point from the center of the circle or the axis of the shaft by J, the polar moment of inertia. Okay, so tau is equal to T rho by J. So if you look at the units, T torque is Newton meter, rho is meter, and J is rho square dA. That means meter square into meter square. That is meter power 4. So meter power 4 here, meter here. So meter cube. So Newton meter by meter cube is Newton per meter square. So we will get the expression for shear, for the stress. Newton per meter square is the same quantity as same dimensions as stress dimensions. So this is regarding the elastic torsion formula. And suppose instead of a solid circular shaft, we have a hollow circular shaft. So what is happening? Interior part is not there. This interior part is removed. We are only having the outer. We have only material between this outer diameter and the inner diameter. Okay, material is there only in between these two diameters. So the inner radius is R1, outer radius is R2. There is no change in the shear stress distribution. It will again be linear with maximum occurring at the outer edge. But since there is no material here, the minimum shear stress will occur at this point R1, at a distance R1. So the tau minimum we can find out. And what we have to do, if you want to find the torque produced, we want to relate it with this, we have to do an integral. Instead of 0 to R2, we'll integrate only from R1 to R2. Okay, so what will happen here is, first we can use similar triangles and relate tau max and tau minimum. So tau minimum by R1 is equal to tau max by R2. So that is one relation here. And for J calculation, we have to do that rho square dA. So that rho square dA, we have to consider only this part, this area in between those two radii. So we do the integration R1 to R2, 0 to 2 pi. Rho square dA in terms of polar coordinate is r d theta dr. So rho d theta dr. So theta varies from 0 to 2 pi, r varies from R1 to R2. Okay, so we have rho cube dr, and the integral for that is rho power 4 by 4 from R1 to R2, and d theta we do the integral from 0 to 2 pi, it will be 2 pi. So R2 power 4 minus R1 power 4 by 4 into 2 pi. So 2 and 4 will become 2 in the denominator. So this is a J value, pi by 2 R2 power 4 minus R1 power 4. So once we know the J value, we can just put it in this expression for shear. So shear stress will be tau rho by J. So here rho limits are from R1 to R2 because there is no material in the interior. Less than R1, there is no material there. Okay, so only the difference between So when you're doing with a hollow section, we just have to modify the J value, and rest of the elastic torsion formula we can apply directly. So we'll solve a simple example here. So we have a hollow circular shaft, and the outer diameter is 60 millimeters, inner diameter is 40 millimeters. The total length is 1.5 meters. So the maximum stress which can be allowable stress, maximum allowable shear stress is given as 120 megapascal. So we are asked to find what is the maximum torque that can be applied, and what is the corresponding, if you apply that maximum, that T torque, which will produce the maximum, which is the maximum allowed, what will be the minimum shear stress coming on the shaft? That is another question. So what we will do, first thing we'll do, we'll calculate the J for this circular for this hollow section. So we'll have to use the formula pi by 2 r2 power 4 minus r1 power 4. So r1 is 20, r2 is 30. So we substitute 30 power 4 minus 20 power 4 and millimeter power 4. So we'll get 1.021 into 10 power 6 millimeter power 4. So the tau max is TR2 by J. That is the maximum shear stress we will develop on the outermost circle. So tau max is TR2 by J. And there is a limit that tau max should be less than 120 megapascal. So 120 megapascal should be, tau max is less than 120 megapascal, and that is equal to TR2 by J. So we can find what is the maximum torque we can apply by putting by substituting the numbers here. So megapascal is 1 megapascal is 1 Newton per millimeter square, and T we don't know. R2 is 30 millimeters, J is 1.02 and power 6 millimeter per 4. So what will happen, millimeter cube will become their millimeter. So what will happen is we will get 4.08 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter, and that should be greater than T. So 1 Newton is we can express 10 power 6 Newton meter, it will be equal to 1 kilonewton meter. So it is 4.08 kilonewton meter. So the maximum torque which you can apply is 4.08 kilonewton meter. So if you exceed that, then the maximum shear stress will exceed 120 megapascal. So this is the limiting, this is the limit. And if you apply this torque, what will be the minimum shear stress? So for that we have to apply this formula, which we obtain by similar triangles. Tau minimum by R1 is tau maximum by R2. So we can send R1 there, 20 by 30 into 120 is 80. So that is the minimum shear stress when you apply that this much torque. Okay, so this is the application of the elastic torsion formula. Okay. Okay, suppose if the shaft doesn't have constant cross section, if it has variable cross section, what should we do? So here we are having a shaft composed of three different prismatic areas. So this is segment B, segment EC, and segment AC. So segment EC has a little higher area compared to segment EB and segment AC. Okay. So we are shown the torques here: TB, TE, TC, and TA. So for force equilibrium, for the torque equilibrium, what will happen is TE plus TC, which are acting in the same direction, should balance TA plus TB, which are acting in the other direction. Okay, so this is the global equilibrium. TB plus TA is equal to TE plus TC. So if you're interested in finding what is the torque or the internal torque which is being developed on the surface, so what we do, cut a cross section there and look at the free body diagram. So we have our TB here and TE here. So there will be some shear stress which is developed on this surface. The resultant is such that resultant will be producing some torque T, S. Okay, so the TS will be such that TE plus TS will be TB. The force balance which will happen, and we need to find what is the TS value. So we can solve here and find what is TS value, and once we know the TS value, we can use our elastic torsion formula and find what is the maximum shear stress. And yeah, that's it. You can find the maximum shear stress which is occurring at the outermost part, and minimum is 0, lying at the center, lying on that axis. Okay, so the analysis is very simple. You just have to cut the cross section and do the look at the free body diagram and do the torsional force balance. Okay. So what else we can do? Yeah. So I think we are familiar now with the Mohs circle. So let's look at from the perspective of shear stress, how it is distributed on the outer surface. So on the outer surface, there is no normal stress. Okay, there is only shear stress acting here. So there is a twisting torque in this direction. So the shear stress is acting. If you take a stress element there, there is a shear stress in the upper, and on the left face it is acting in the downward direction. And longitudinal stress will act towards this. Both will act towards same point of intersection. So you have tau there, and to balance it, there will be this tau there. So this is a stress element on the outermost surface of the shaft. Now what we can do, we can draw the Mohs circle for this stress element. So let's take this left face and the right face, let's denote it by M, and the top face and the bottom face, let's denote it by N. So for M, what is the normal stress? Normal stress is 0. And what is the shear stress? It is acting in the upward direction, it is in the anti-clockwise direction, so it is plus tau max. Similarly for this surface, normal stress is 0 and the shear stress is acting downward and it is in the anti-clockwise direction, so it will be plus tau max. So M corresponds to a point, so so M corresponds to 0 comma tau max, and N, so normal stress is 0 and tau max is acting in this direction, it is producing the anti-clockwise movement, so clockwise movement, so it will be negative. So N corresponds to 0 comma minus tau max. Similarly here again normal stress is 0 and there is the shear stress minus tau max, okay, because it's producing clockwise. So we can draw the Mohs circle. First thing we'll do is we'll have that sigma tau theta axis, and M is corresponds to 0 comma tau max. So the x coordinate is 0, so it will lie on the y axis, and tau max is positive, so it will lie on the positive y axis. So this is the M value. Similarly, N is 0 comma minus tau max, so x coordinate is 0, again it will lie on the y axis, and minus tau max means it lie on the negative y axis. So we identify the M and N points. So once you know the M and N points, what we can do, we can find the midpoint. Midpoint happens to be coinciding with the origin. So we can draw a circle with the radius ON or OM, and the circle will pass through M and N. It will intersect sigma theta at A and B. So A is at A value we can get, that is tau max comma 0, and B value it will be minus tau max comma 0. So A and B correspond to the principal stresses. Okay, so how to find the orientation of the principal stresses? So principal planes. So from M, we have to move by an angle of 90 degrees to reach A. So 2 theta is 90 degrees. So the plane will rotate by 45 degrees. So we have our plane which is initially like this, M, and we have to rotate it by 45 degrees. So we get a plane like this, and the normal is this one, and the angle it makes with the x-axis is 45 degrees. Similarly, the other two this plane we have to rotate by another 90 to get this plane. So because of and you can consider this surface also. This surface will be, we have to move by 180 into 2, which is again it will come back to the same point. Okay, because the angle between these two surfaces, these two normals is 180. So when you move 180 into 2, 360 degrees, you'll come back to the same point. So both this surface and this surface represent the same, are represented by the same point on the Mohs circle. Okay, so this surface and this surface corresponds to point A, and this surface and this surface correspond to point B. Okay, so the normal stress there is tau max. It is in the positive value, so it is acting. It's a tensile stress. And here at surface B, it is minus tau max, so it is a compressive stress, so it's acting towards the surface. So we can sketch that the stress element on the outer surface of the shaft. So that surface, stress element is shown here. So we have the tensile forces T, the tensile stresses T acting on surface A, and compressive stress C acting on the surfaces B. And both compressive stress and the magnitude of stress are same, and it is equal to tau max. Okay, So this is regarding the stress distribution on the outer surface. So you can take it like, you can assume it to be oriented in the longitudinal direction, we'll have the maximum shear stress values, and if you rotate by 45 degrees, you'll get the principal stresses. Okay. And I think we can now look into some small experimental kind of thing. I think I had done one experiment a little time while back, of a chalk piece and all. Okay. Okay, so we have done one experiment a little while back. So we had a chalk piece, we have a chalk piece, and I apply a twisting moment on the chalk piece. Okay, is it shown here? Yeah. So we have a chalk piece here, and I apply a twisting moment on the chalk. Okay. As a result, you see that the surface, it is, if you look at the chalk piece, what will happen is the surface is 45 degrees on the outer surface. There's a 45-degree angle. The failed surface is making an angle of 45 degrees. Okay, it is actually fairing like a helix kind of thing. Okay, when you apply the torque, I think it's visible here. Yeah, so you can see that 45-degree angle here. So the chalk piece itself is a brittle material. That means the tensile stress it can take is lesser than the shear stress. Okay, so for brittle materials, the tensile strength is lesser than the shear strength. So we will do the analysis for the brittle and ductile material and see how the theory we can relate to the experiment. Okay, so yeah, shear failure in shaft subjected to torque. So we are chalk piece is a brittle material, and ductile materials are like steel and any usually they are ductile materials. So ductile materials, brittle materials are weak in tension. That means they're, oh shit, here. I made an error here. Okay, so they're weak in tension. That means their tensile strength is lesser than the shear strength, and ductile materials are weak in shear. That means the shear strength is less than the tensile strength. So here the arrow, this left, this should be in the leftward direction. Tau failure is less than sigma tensile failure, and here tau failure is greater than sigma tensile failure. I made an error here, so just this arrow should be reversed. So it should be a lesser quantity, and this should be a greater quantity. So anyway, let's look at that. So we have a metal here, and we are twisting the metal. So what will happen is, since the metal is ductile, it will have higher. Yeah, what is it? Since the metal is ductile, what will happen? The tensile stress will be less, or tensile stress is more? I don't know. Okay, let's look at the chalk piece only. So chalk piece is weak in tension. That is what we know, and it is stronger in shear. So when you twist the chalk piece, it can fail with like this, where the surface is, it can fail in shear. Okay, that means the maximum shear stress is activated and it can fail like this.